Pope Leo XIV warns us, never store this under your bed. It could bring curses. The ordinary world and the mysterious warning of Pope Leo XIV. It was a quiet morning in Rome. The bells of St. Peter's had not yet begun to ring when the Vatican surprised the world with an unusual message. The new pontiff, Leo XIV, a man known more for his spiritual wisdom and austerity than for public appearances, broke his silence with a statement that baffled even the most devout. Never store certain things under your bed. You might be inviting forces you don't understand. The words, firm but not alarmist, were delivered during a discreet homily at the chapel of Santa Marta, but soon went viral on social media, news sites, and religious channels around the world. Why would a pope speak about such a seemingly trivial household detail? What kind of evil could hide beneath such a common piece of furniture? The news ignited collective curiosity, and as often happens, interpretations spread like wildfire. But behind the enigma lay something deeper, something that connected ancient superstitions, forgotten traditions, and warnings the Church had kept silent about for centuries. Many interpreted the warning as a metaphor, a poetic way of referring to hidden parts of the soul. But in some parts of the world, especially villages where oral tradition still thrives, the warning echoed like a familiar ancestral voice. In Peru, an elderly woman remembered her grandmother saying that keeping old shoes under the bed would open a door to eternal unrest. In the Philippines, a Christian community shared online that broken objects stored under the bed acted as spiritual anchors for dark entities. And in southern Italy, some monasteries still preserve medieval texts listing items that, when placed under the bed, could unintentionally summon shadows, tormented spirits, or signs of generational curses. What began as a simple warning from Pope Leo XV quickly turned into a global phenomenon, prompting millions to check under their beds with a mix of fear, skepticism, and wonder. This video does not seek to spread fear, but to awaken awareness. Throughout this story, you will uncover the secrets behind Pope Leo XIV's warning, the cultural roots that give it weight, testimonies that defy logic, and, above all, the symbols in everyday life that may be disturbing your peace without you knowing. Stay until the end, because what seems like superstition might hold the key to understanding long-forgotten spiritual truths. And if this already has your attention, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a comment with whatever comes to mind. Have you ever felt something strange while sleeping? Your experience might be part of a truth greater than you imagine. Let's discover it together. The forbidden items, what not to store under your bed. Leo XIV's warning did not come out of nowhere. According to internal Vatican documents, rarely disclosed to the public, there are ancient records linking the act of storing certain items under one's bed with a progressive disruption of spiritual harmony in the home. One of the oldest texts, dated to the 13th century, recounts how a Bavarian monastery experienced a series of unexplained events after a monk stored a damaged reliquary under his bed. From that point on, the nights were filled with noises, collective nightmares, and a heavy atmosphere that led to the monastery being shut down for mystical contamination. These seemingly harmless objects acted as spiritual magnets, attracting dark memories, unresolved guilt, or unseen presences that feed on human neglect. Among the most frequently mentioned items in both historical reports and modern testimonies are broken mirrors, worn-out shoes, old photographs, rag dolls, and unsent letters. What many don't understand is that the space beneath the bed, energetically speaking, functions as a transit zone. According to various religious traditions and spiritual schools of thought, including Eastern monasticism and Benedictine liturgy, this area represents the threshold between active consciousness, the waking world, and spiritual unconsciousness, the world of dreams and the soul. When we place inert, forgotten, or emotionally charged items in that threshold, we're literally allowing their energy to interfere with our psyche during sleep. That's why so many stories abound. People unable to sleep, plagued by night terrors, or waking up with inexplicable sadness. Upon removing these objects, most report immediate relief. With his pastoral insight and years serving humble communities in Africa and Latin America, Leo XIV had heard hundreds of such cases before issuing his public warning. To him, this wasn't just a matter of faith, but of spiritual health. If you've made it this far, you're probably looking under your own bed with suspicion, and rightly so. This topic runs deeper than it seems and affects millions without their knowledge. Have you had repeated nightmares with no clear cause? Do you wake up emotionally drained? The answer may lie just beneath you as you sleep. Leave a comment sharing what you keep under your bed. Does it match any of the items mentioned? Hit the like button if you've ever felt strange energy after waking, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now so you don't miss what comes next. In the next chapter, you'll hear a case that even shook the Pope himself. The testimony of Lucia, the woman who defied the Pope's warning. Lucia was 46 when she first heard Pope Leo XIV's warning. A modest woman, she worked as a nurse in a rural clinic in southern Colombia, mother of 2 teenagers and a widow for 5 years. Like many, she lived between work and household duties, with little time to reflect on the energy surrounding her. One night, while washing dishes with the TV on in the background, she heard the Pope speak about items stored under the bed. A chill ran down her spine, not out of fear, but because she had recently moved some old boxes stored beneath her bed. Inside were letters from her late husband, a broken engagement ring from the accident, and her youngest son's rag doll, now a teenager. She had thought little of them, just keepsakes, but something deep inside her stirred, as if her subconscious knew those memories were doing more harm than good. Soon after, Lucia began suffering from severe insomnia. Her sons noticed she talked in her sleep and woke up soaked in sweat. One night, she screamed so loudly the neighbors called the police, thinking there had been a break-in. Embarrassed and confused, she visited the local priest. Father Ernesto, a wise man not prone to superstition, listened carefully to her story. At first, he thought it was unresolved grief, but something in Lucia's expression made him pause. He asked if she kept personal items under her bed. She nodded. "Take them out tonight," he said firmly, "and come talk to me tomorrow." Lucia obeyed. When she opened the boxes, she noticed the rag doll had a stain on its chest she had never seen before, as if it had been stabbed. The letters, once sweet, now felt bitter and full of guilt. That night she slept soundly for the first time in months. Lucia returned to Father Ernesto in tears. She couldn't explain what she felt, but she knew something had changed. Over time, she began writing about her experience and was contacted by Vatican researchers collecting testimonies related to Leo XIV's warning. Her story was included, anonymously, in a confidential report sent to the Pope himself. Since then, Lucia has spoken on local radio and in parishes, not to frighten people, but to encourage them to examine what they store in their most intimate spaces. Not everything we keep is a memory. Sometimes it's a burden draining us without our knowledge, she often says. As her story spreads, many realize they too are living among energies trapped in objects that no longer belong to them. If this story touched your heart, leave A in the comments and share this video. Someone else may need to hear it. Forgotten beliefs. What the ancients said about the space beneath the bed, long before beds existed as we know them today, ancient civilizations already held sacred perceptions of where the body rests. In cultures as distant as the Egyptian, Mexican, and Tibetan, sleep was not merely a physiological act. It was a passage into the invisible realm, the spiritual plane where dreams were messages and the soul traveled freely. Therefore, what was placed near, or especially beneath, the sleeping area was considered of utmost importance. Egyptian funerary texts described rituals to cleanse the spirit's resting place, and in Mayan codices, references were made to guardians of the ground, who dwelled beneath beds, and, when disrespected, brought insomnia, visions, and even physical ailments. In many African cultures, placing knives, broken mirrors, or even shoes under the bed was seen as a direct offense to ancestors. These were not mere superstitions. They were built upon generations of spiritual observation and human behavior. In medieval Europe, especially among monastic orders, similar ideas existed with a different focus. The underbed space was considered a transitional zone where repressed emotions and residual energies collected. In some Franciscan convents, novices were instructed to inspect under their beds every night and were strictly forbidden from storing any personal items there, not even the Bible. The reasoning was simple. Sleep must remain spiritually unencumbered. They taught that broken objects, unused items, or things charged with intense emotion could speak in the night, disturbing the silence of the soul. In northern Italy, there even existed a specific bedtime prayer to seal the ground, recited before sleep as a kind of invisible barrier against underground influences. Many of these rituals have been lost in modern times, but they still linger in small communities where tradition is stronger than logic. What's fascinating is that while these practices may seem outdated or exotic, there is an invisible thread connecting them to Pope Leo XIV's warning. His message was not an isolated invention. It was a revival of an ancestral knowledge that had long been asleep, just like many of us. By urging us not to store certain things under our beds, he was asking us to observe our habits with spiritual eyes, to understand that physical space mirrors inner space, and no object is without energy, no area without meaning. If this knowledge surprised you, give this video a like and comment if your family ever spoke of these beliefs. And if you know of any local customs related to sleep or the spiritual world of dreams, share it. Your culture may be part of this rediscovered story we're building together. The Vatican and cursed objects, real cases archived in secret. Behind the walls of the Vatican, beyond the golden halls and sacred corridors, lies a section few have ever seen, the secret archive. This place, protected by centuries of tradition and guarded access, holds documents not found in public records. Among them are unsettling testimonies involving cursed objects and their effects on the lives of the faithful. One of the oldest, Biles, tells of a young seminarian who, after storing a rusted iron cross under his bed in 1823, began experiencing demonic visions. The report, handwritten by a Jesuit priest, describes how the young man screamed in Latin during his sleep, despite not having learned the language. After the object was removed and ritually purified, the visions ceased. The case was deemed so sensitive that it was labeled undisclosable and hidden for nearly 2 centuries, until Leo XIV requested its partial declassification. Another eerie report describes what happened in 1954 to an Italian family living near Naples. The mother, a devout Catholic, placed an old rosary under her sick son's bed, one that had belonged to her great-grandmother. She meant well, seeking divine protection, but in the following weeks, the boy suffered nightly panic attacks. He claimed to see a white face watching him from beneath the bed. Alarmed, the family contacted a local priest who reached out to the Vatican. The investigation revealed that the rosary had once been used in an unauthorized penitential rite centuries ago and carried a negative spiritual imprint. The object was confiscated and stored in a special box inside the archive, where it remains to this day. These stories, and many others yet unrevealed, shed light on why Pope Leo XIV felt compelled to speak publicly. What seems harmless may have deeper, darker origins. These archives are not folk tales or urban myths. They are sealed records, preserved by generations of faithful men who understood that spiritual battles aren't fought only at the altar, but also in our most private spaces. By opening parts of these files, Leo XIV invites us to break the silence and look at our surroundings with renewed awareness. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready to confront truths long kept in the shadows. Share this video with someone who sleeps peacefully, unaware of what lies beneath their bed. And if you want us to reveal more Vatican secrets in future episodes, let us know in the comments. Your voice may help bring these hidden truths to light. The power of sacred space. How to purify the place where you sleep after understanding the dangers that can lurk under our beds. Many wonder, how can we protect our sleeping space? The answer lies not only in faith, but in consciously transforming that place into a spiritual refuge. Throughout history, cultures around the world have developed rituals to sanctify the bed. In Christian tradition, especially within ancient monasteries, monks would anoint their beds with holy oil and recite prayers before lying down. The goal wasn't fear, but spiritual clarity. The bed had to be clean, both physically and symbolically, as an act of surrender to God during rest. Even today, some convents maintain this practice quietly, remembering that sleep is sacred, where the body restores itself and the soul entrusts itself to divine care. Leo XIV, in a private letter to bishops in Latin America, referred to the sacred space of sleep as an invisible altar that must be protected. In that document, he recommended steps to purify the bedroom. First, remove anything without a clear or positive purpose from beneath the bed. Nothing broken, dirty, or forgotten should remain. Second, sprinkle holy water in the room's corners, especially under the bed, while reciting a protective psalm, most commonly Psalm 91. Third, if desired, place a sacred image above the headboard, not as an amulet, but as a reminder of divine presence. These simple acts, while symbolic, hold deep power over the mind and spirit. When done, the believer not only clears the space, but also clears themselves of negative thoughts, old fears, and unwanted energies. The transformation is real. Many faithful have shared how, after following these recommendations, they began sleeping more peacefully, their nightmares ceased, and their homes regained a sense of calm. A woman from Guadalajara wrote to the Vatican describing how, after removing items stored under her bed, she felt an unexplained lightness in her chest while sleeping. A priest from Angola reported that his congregation slept better after a collective blessing of their rooms. These changes aren't magic, they're faith in action. If you're ready to take that step, comment below, "I want to purify my space." And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Sometimes the first act of liberation starts by simply looking beneath us and deciding to clean it with intention. The return of silence, how evil reacts when it loses its place. Evil doesn't always arrive with screams, shadows, or apparitions. Sometimes it manifests through heavy atmospheres, unexplained fatigue, constant arguments at home, or that oppressive feeling that creeps in without warning. When someone decides to reclaim their spiritual space, like clearing out what lies beneath their bed, it's not just dust being removed. Energies that had grown comfortable there, fed by neglect, pain, or sadness are forced to move, and they don't go quietly. Many testimonies collected by priests and exorcists describe a strange phenomenon. Right after a spiritual cleansing, a period of resistance often follows. More intense dreams, small accidents, physical discomfort. When evil is cast out, it protests, it tries to come back. That's why Leo XIV insists these rituals not be done halfway. A clean house is a promise, but only prayer keeps the door closed. Before becoming Pope, While serving as Archbishop in Africa, Leo XIV accompanied missionaries to villages where faith was the only shield against darkness. In one such village, he met an elderly woman named Mamba, who left a deep impression on him. She lived alone in a modest hut and had a nightly habit, lighting a candle and whispering a prayer she'd learned from her mother. Not out of fear, she would say, but because night isn't just for sleeping, it's for defending yourself. One day, a young woman tormented by strange presences was brought to Mamba's home. Mamba asked her to remove everything under her bed and burn it at dawn. The girl obeyed. That night she cried deeply, but slept soundly. From then on, Mamba and Leo XIV exchanged letters for years. He learned from her that expelling evil is just the first step. The real challenge is not inviting it back. Across cultures and corners of the globe, the same truth emerges. Darkness does not leave without resistance. But when the soul strengthens and light enters the home, silence returns. Not any silence, but the kind that allows the mind to rest, the spirit to rise, and love to flow. If you felt that resistance after changing something in your home, breaking something unintentionally, arguing for no reason, or having a disturbing dream right after cleaning your room, you're not alone. It's part of the process. Don't stop. Comment if you've experienced this and drop a "if today you choose to protect your space with faith." Remember, darkness feeds on abandonment, but you're here, listening, learning, deciding, and that alone is a powerful act of expulsion. The legacy of Leo XIV, a warning that will forever change how we sleep. When Leo XIV ascended to the papal throne, many saw him as a silent, almost invisible leader. But those who knew him understood that his power did not lie in grand gestures, but in his ability to move souls from the shadows. His warning about what we keep under our beds was not a casual message, but a carefully planted spiritual legacy. In a world rushing ahead, trivializing the sacred and forgetting the value of symbolism, his voice rose to remind us that even the most ordinary spaces, like where we sleep, hold spiritual weight. His words were not a call to fear, but to awareness, to observe, to cleanse, to protect, to recognize that rest is not just physical, it's an act of surrender, of faith, of communion with the divine. Since his statement, thousands have written, prayed, and shared their testimonies, and many, like you, have begun to see their homes. With new eyes, Leo XIV is not shaping his pontificate through politics or controversy. He is leaving imprints on the souls of the faithful, reviving forgotten customs, and issuing quiet alerts that awaken our deepest consciousness. In private interviews, he has referred to his mission as a silent awakening. He knows that modern evil no longer appears with horns and flames, but with apathy, domestic chaos, insomnia, anxiety, and spiritual disarray. That's why his insistence on small details, holy water in the bedroom, cleaning under the bed, nighttime prayer, is not superstition. It's armor, tools to restore the home to its sacred role. Because if the place we sleep is left open, the enemy enters unseen, but if it becomes a temple, no shadow dares cross it. Now it's your turn. This video doesn't end when you close the screen. It ends when you kneel beside your bed and choose to look beneath it with a new heart. It ends when you clear not just the dust, but the emotional residue within each object. It ends when you turn off the light with peace in your soul, knowing your bed is now an altar of faith. Subscribe to the channel if you feel this warning spoke to you. Share this message with someone you love, someone who deserves to sleep in peace. And leave a comment. What will you change today in your bedroom? Remember, great miracles don't always happen in packed churches, but in the quiet of a clean, blessed room. That is the true legacy of Leo XIV. May his words continue to awaken sleeping hearts and homes that have forgotten their light.